It's finally happening. We're not dreaming. Reports confirm the New York Mets have shown interest in Guardians outfielder Steven Kwan, which would make this team unstoppable. Fans love it, but they might be turned off by the price, which is exactly what we're going to dive into only here on Mets Digest. I'm your host today, Mike Duda. We're going to talk Steven Kwan. We're going to talk the price for him, but first, we got to talk about some subscribers, and that being the fact that 69.2% of you that watch these videos aren't one. So please do me a favor, just a favor here at Mets Digest, and hit that free subscribe button. That way we can bring content to you about the amazing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into Steven Kwan, and we're going to start it off with the experts. You know I love Steven Kwan, and I want him on this team real bad. Timothy Rapp of the Bleacher Report confirms the Mets are indeed interested in the Guardians superstar. Rapp says, quote, "The Cleveland Guardians are reportedly fielding big interest in all-star outfielder Steven Kwan ahead of Thursday's MLB trade deadline, according to John Heyman of the New York Post. Heyman is one of the best insiders in all of baseball. I would honestly put him second behind Jeff Passan, to be completely honest. Among the listed teams interested are the Los Angeles Dodgers, New York Mets, Philadelphia Phillies, and San Diego Padres, per that report. Though Heyman believes, quote, a righty hitter fits Philly better. That's unfortunate. If we lose Kwan to the division rival Phillies, I am going to be really, really upset. So let's hope that doesn't happen. As for the Mets, Heyman believes they could be a fit for Kwan too, assuming they believe he can play center field, or they can move Brandon Nimmo back there, which I don't know if Kwan can necessarily play center, but I know Brandon Nimmo can go back there. I know he had problems with the plantar fasciitis, but I really do think Nimmo could be a center fielder and could be a solid outfielder at that, and this would solve that Met center field problem in the perfect way. Now, the only problem with this is, in addition to the 4 teams that were listed by Rapp, there are other teams as well, and this could go any way. As Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic added that Kwan is drawing a ton of interest, according to a club source with the Dodgers, we already heard them, Toronto Blue Jays, Phillies, and Padres. So now add the Blue Jays to the mix. Believed to be among the teams in the mix. The Mets as well, but for some reason Rosenthal didn't note that. He also noted that Emmanuel Clase being placed on non-disciplinary leave while MLB investigates his potential sports betting activity, which we've talked about before on Mets Digest, ended any chance of the Guardians becoming a buyer and likely increased the possibility of the team trading right-handed Shane Bieber and perhaps left fielder Kwan. That would be huge, as now we're going to turn it to Tom Withers of the AP, who can confirm this really honestly can go anywhere, as the Guardians mess raises so many other questions and possibilities. Clase was a possible trade target for contenders who are certainly now inquiring about Kwan, Bieber, Smith. There's so many guys. That's what happens when you have a team that's a buyer for a while and then at the last second becomes a seller. They have a lot of talent, and they have a lot of talent that they're willing to trade. Kwan, you could have possibly had a blockbuster deal of Steven Kwan and Emmanuel Clase for whomever with whatever team, but it looks like Clase is out of the mix now, and unless there's going to be a blockbuster of Kwan and Bieber, it's now a fight amongst the 5 teams who wants Kwan the most, and I really do hope it's the New York Mets, as this could go numerous directions. Also wondering if other teams under new gambling scrutiny. That's interesting because there's a whole investigation out. Of course, Emmanuel Clase is part of it, who I guess raised concern for the MLB, and his gambling activities were not that good. So with that, we're going to turn it to even more experts. We got a lot of expert voices today. Like I mentioned before, the Clase drama really helps the Mets. As Rapp goes on to say, before the Clase situation, Cleveland's willingness to actually trade Kwan was unclear. But with Clase out of the picture until at least August 31st, and the Guardians now 9 games back of the Detroit Tigers in the AL Central and 4 games back of the final wildcard berth, becoming sellers is probably the logical move. So yes, Emmanuel Clase is going to be out until the end of August. That's what the MLB decided to hand down the suspension for that gambling for him. And with that, I don't think he can be traded anymore because he is now under suspension. So I'm 99% sure that actually means he won't be traded. So no blockbuster with Clase and Kwan. The only guy really that would be a blockbuster to pair with Kwan is Shane Bieber. And if David Stearns wants to make a big splash, a Juan Soto signing type splash, he can go out and acquire both. That would be really cool. The only problem is, though, ESPN at this moment only has a 10% chance of Kwan actually being traded, though that that is a continuously updating article, so I don't know if it's updated to the fact that Clase is now out to the 31st, and the Guardians are basically 100% sellers, because like Rapp was mentioning in that quote, look at the standings right now. Cleveland is under 500. They are one game under the 500 mark, 3.5 back in the wild card, chasing 3 teams. They're 9 out in the American League Central. They lost 10 in a row a little bit ago, but they've gained some heat. 13-6 since, and they are 6-4 in their last 10, so definitely solid, but it looks like overall they are indeed going to be sellers. And some more unfortunate news on this side, Jon Heyman still believes the Mets want Luis Robert and Cedric Mullins. He says, quote, Kwan is out there, but Robert or Mullins looks like a more likely Mets center field options, even though the Guardians are, quote, open to anything. So that's very unfortunate because nobody wants this guy. I pull up this stats every single video, it seems like. I don't want Cedric Mullins, and I definitely do not want Luis Robert, especially if it's a 1-for-1 deal with Mark Vientos, or if Vientos is even involved for that matter. No. Neither of those guys. I want Steven Kwan, but he's going to cost a lot, and I think I'm willing to do it. I am willing to trade a lot. Now, this deal, at first, honestly, I thought it was more logical, but with the way Brandon Nimmo has been swinging the bat lately, I think this is the less logical option. Very interesting one, in fact, as the Guardians here would be taking on a hefty contract. Brandon Nimmo is on an 8-year, $162 million contract. $102.5 million are still guaranteed to him until he becomes a free agent, in addition to whatever this year entails if the Mets were to end up doing this deal with the Guardians, as it would be Kwan, who's on a very, very cheap contract. 1 year, $4.175 to avoid arbitration for Nimmo, who's got a hefty contract. And, of course, the New York Mets' number 5 prospect in Brandon Sproat, who in some instances has been a top 100 prospect, but has not clipped the top 100 on MLB Pipeline just yet. He's been hot and cold in AAA. He's been pretty hot of late. So this is definitely an interesting deal. I definitely do not like this one as the number 1. Now, the other option is going to be also a very hefty package, but it's not going to include Nimmo, as trading away Nimmo really doesn't make any sense. Nimmo is around the same talent level as Kwan. Kwan might be better. They both have their perks and their negatives. Kwan is a better leadoff hitter, gets on base more, and has a higher batting average, but Nimmo has started to really tap into that power, and it's a solid power bat. I want both of them in this lineup, because if you move Nimmo to center and you have Kwan out in left field, your lineup consists from 1 through 6. Steven Kwan in this order. Steven Kwan, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, and then Jeff McNeil. That's an amazing 1 through 6. You still have Ronnie Mauricio, Francisco Alvarez, and Brett Baty to close it out. That's a great lineup. I think that's a World Series contending lineup. So I would love to keep Nimmo, which is why we might have to tap into the other trade option, which we'll get to in just a little bit. Let's take a look here at Nimmo stats this year. He has looked really, really good. Remember when that OPS was below 700 and was in the high 6s? Yeah, now it's at 778, basically a 260 average, which is higher than both Pete Alonso and Juan Soto right now. The OBP well above 300, 12 stolen bases as well. He started to tap into the running game. Thank you, Antoine Richardson, our first base coach. Over 100 hits, 19 RBIs. Like I said, he's tapping into the power. 60 RBIs, 19 homers. Really, really solid overall for Brandon Nimmo. As here is that second mock trade that we were talking about. A lot more interesting. Definitely more interesting. Now, cash is cash. The Mets have a ton of it. Steve Cohen, our owner, he is just made of money, it seems like, and is willing to spend anything he needs to go get this team a World Series championship, which, as a fan, I really appreciate. Thank you so much, Steve, for that. But right-handed pitcher Calvin Ziegler, we're going to work backwards here, starting with the lesser prospects in terms of the rankings. Now, Ziegler is in high A right now. He's on the 60-day IL. He was a second-round pick, but that was all the way back in 2021, and it's now 2025, and he's only in high A, so it looks like he hasn't progressed very well, so I don't see him panning out to be anything great. We've seen Blade Tidwell in the pros before. Maybe some more seasoning will help him out. He is still the Mets' number 10 prospect according to Pipeline, but overall, I'm not too high on him. The question is, as a fan, and I'll ask you this a couple of times moving forward, Are you willing to trade Jet Williams for Steven Kwan? Jet Williams, number one prospect in our system, number 38 overall. I'm almost 100% certain he is going to be a stud. I think he's going to be really, really good. But the question is, how much are you in on 2025? The Mets are leading the National League East right now. They just lost 2 games, but they're still in the lead of the division. This was a year that you wanted to go win it all. You wanted to win the World Series. This is the final bat I think you need for this lineup in Steven Kwan. The Mets don't have a traditional leadoff hitter. They really haven't had one since Jose Reyes. This is your traditional leadoff hitter who gets on base. He's pretty quick. He can steal some bases, and he's going to play some solid defense out in left field. The question is, are you willing to give up your future in Jet Williams? Now, funny enough, Williams is the number one prospect in our system. I like our number 2 a lot better in Jonah Tong. I think Jonah Tong is going to be the next Jacob deGrom plus. I think he's going to be absolutely lethal. So it's interesting for me that I like the number 2 better than the number 1. So I'm happy this deal does not include Tong, but it is still Jet Williams, who has been rumored to be incredible for years and years on end. Mets are taking their time, but right now, David Stearns has said it. He doesn't plan to bring up any of the young prospect position players. So how willing are you to go win the 2025 World Series? Honestly, I think Williams is somebody that you can get rid of in this Steven Kwan deal. I think the return package in Kwan is enough. I know I might get some hate down in the comments for that, and let me know what you think. Tell me if you disagree. I don't mind, but Jet Williams, I know he's great, but Steven Kwan is that missing piece in my opinion. He is how we get to the World Series. So with that, let's turn it to a couple of other pieces if the Mets do not go out and acquire Steven Kwan. Starting it off with Ramon Laureano. The Mets have shown interest in him. Again, according to Heyman, Ramon Laureano, who has an 875 OPS, should be a nice trade chip. Manning corner outfield spots for the Orioles this year, but has been fine in center field, which would intrigue the Mets, and still could play there. Orioles hold 2026 option, but he'd fit the Phillies, the San Diego Padres, Cincinnati Reds, San Francisco Giants, maybe the New York Mets, and more. So they are in fact rumored to go out and possibly get him. I don't mind him as an addition. I don't like the fact that he's been suspended before for PEDs. I like to avoid the off-field drama as much as humanly possible. I think the Mets have a good roster right now in terms of guys that don't do anything off the field that are bad. They're not known for their off-the-field character in a negative sense. Obviously, you have guys that are great off the field. Brandon Nimmo is awesome with charity, which is another reason why I don't want to get rid of Nimmo. Nimmo is a leader. He's a great statistical player. He hustles, and he just defines baseball. You got Francisco Lindor, who's always smiling. Pete Alonso is big with charity. You got all these really, really good guys in the New York Met clubhouse, so I don't like bringing in someone who has a PED history, who has a negative fashion off the field in his past, and I'm saying that as somebody, I played and now coach at the organization that Ramon Laureano grew up playing for. So I might be a little biased towards Ramon Laureano, but I really got turned off by the PED stuff with Laureano. And I know the stats are good with him, but honestly, I don't want him because of those off the field problems. But I don't mind overall if the Mets go out and get Laureano. So let's turn it over to his teammate in Charlie Morton, as Heyman also reports the Mets have interest in him. He says, quote, "The Mets are among the possibilities for Orioles Charlie Morton," of course, the teammate of Ramon Laureano. So let's quickly dive into his stats. Not the best year this year, but he's a consistent pitcher overall. I've always liked Charlie Morton. He gets the job done. He's done it with the Rays. He's done it with the Braves. He's really done well against the Mets for whatever that's worth. And look at the innings. He has shown he can pitch some innings. 2,227 innings flat. He pitches a lot of innings every year. He barely gets hurt, and that's kind of what the Mets need right now. The Mets do not get length out of their starting pitchers, at least over the past month and a half, even 2 months. So this is another guy, probably a much cheaper option than a Mitch Keller that is going to eat up innings, but you're going to have to forfeit the ERA. A 5.42 ERA, which is not very good at all, and a 1.56 whip, which is definitely also high. 7-8 record overall with the O's. The O's aren't very good this year, so record doesn't really matter as much, but the ERA is high, as is the whip. So I don't know if I would love getting Charlie Morton. I think he's a more suitable option than Mitch Keller, although Keller is better. Keller's going to cost you a hefty package, so I think if you can get Morton for cheap, I wouldn't mind him as a starting pitcher option, maybe a long reliever. Go down there in the comment section, let me know, do you want Ramon Laureano? Personally, I would shy away from him. Do you want Charlie Morton? Personally, I wouldn't mind him, but the package has to be right. Really have to give up somebody who's 26 and over, probably high A, double A ball, nothing too big to go out and get Morton, who's got a high ERA, although he will eat up some innings, could be a good long reliever, maybe a starter. Let me know if you disagree on either of those. And of course, let me know your thoughts on Steven Kwan. We had some very controversial things said in this video. Do you want to give up Brandon Nimmo for Steven Kwan? Personally, for me, that's a no, but I am willing to give up Jet Williams to go get Steven Kwan. So let me know if you agree down below. Give me your thoughts. Adam and I got you covered. Plenty of trade coverage coming as the deadline is about 31 hours away. So we'll see. What will Stearns do? Will he pull the trigger? If he does, we got you covered, Adam and I. We got you covered with all the rumors as well. More Met updates coming in my next video, so go ahead and check that out when it posts. Thank you so much as always for watching. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have for you in this update, this cool update about Steven Kwan. And as always, let's go Mets.